Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Astartes Anonymous podcast, where today we're bringing you an interesting episode about the wonders of Warhammer 40k and fitness, and maybe a little bit of psychology as well, with the wonderful GrimDark HalfOff, aka Chris, aka Mr. Mr. Snuffleupagus. So, without further ado, I have once again been trapped in a space hulk with a buff pixie, a buff idiot, and the buffest psychologist in the entire Warhammer 40k community. I'm your host, Tom, and these are my co-hosts.
Yep, no, that's pretty fucking spot on. Well, hello everyone, my name is Lucas, or better known as Moots.
Hello, my name's Aaron. The doctor told me my psychology is 80 HDs. I don't know what that means.
I am GrimDark HalfOff, and I am in your walls. Find out more tonight at 11.
Oh, right. Well, it's wonderful to have you, Chris. Just for the audience's reference, we've been talking to Chris for the last hour and a half, and I didn't realize that someone so smart was actually within our community. I've actually learned an awful lot about myself.
Oh, God.
And he speaks for most of the community on that one.
Well, just to talk about Chris, I'm going to pretend you're not here for a minute. Chris, would it be correct, Chris, to refer to you as a psychologist?
Oh, it would most certainly not be. I moved in the direction of arts therapy. So arts therapy is generally what I have my degree in. It is literally an associate's degree in art. I do not want to overblow myself. Most of my knowledge comes from talking with people and dealing with people in that field and learning as much as I can from professionals. I am a no. I no PhD. Me stupid. Me no speaky. I know what English. No habla English. No habla English. No.
But your understanding of psychology is certainly above average.
Well, I mean, yes, I had to integrate it into my general understanding of the world because I just viewed it as the best possible way to help people. For a very long time, I was training to be a criminal psychologist. More specifically, I wanted to specifically focus on men between the ages of 18 and 35 with violent tendencies. I specifically wanted to be a prison psychologist, or more specifically, helping people overcome violent tendencies to reform them outside of prison. Yes.
Well, we could use those skills in understanding men with violent tendencies between the ages of 18 and 350 in this episode. Because there are a few of those in this setting.
Looking at you, Khan.
he has he's got a doctor's note. He's okay.
I mean, he's kind of way above that age gap right there. So I mean, it's gonna be. I think he's way above our pay grade there.
It's okay. You can't put an age limit on violent tendencies.
That's true.
Depending on the motivation, yeah.
I will stay angry far beyond my actual existence in this mortal realm.
So we have as usual, we have our two models of the week to talk about this episode. We have one exceptional. Oh, pardon me.
Too many Big Macs.
Well said.
Too many Big Macs.
I'm so gassy today. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, how dare you?
So we do have.
You're not excused.
Well, fuck you too.
Today on the show, we have digestion issues.
I thought
It's the old acid
Constipation,
reflux.
upset stomach, diarrhea, Astartes Anonymous.
Someone get me a fucking antacid. So the first set of models for our models of the week that we have up this time was picked out by Aaron, and I can't find it. Who was it by?
It is by Warden Painting. I put the link in the references.
Warden Painting.
It's these lovely couple of Black Templars they've painted up. And they're so ridiculously crisp, yet quite grimdark looking with the grime, and it just works really fucking well, I find. The cloaks especially are just so nicely blended. It's just really fucking rich looking.
I really enjoy them. I think I especially also like the weathering on the shoulder pads. That shit looks... it looks nice. That's the kind of shit I aspire to, painting-wise, right now.
Quite delectable.
I'll be honest, I think the best thing about the models are, honestly, I mean, the models are great, but I think the best thing about these models are the bases. They're so, crisp, and just sort of serve the purpose they serve. He hasn't overloaded them with skulls, but certainly put enough in there to go, hey guys, John Blanche, anyone?
Yeah.
You know? I think it's done really, really well.
I mean,
with
the
that.
white, I think, is quite exceptional, because that shit's not easy. But the metallic looks different to the cloth,
White is hard,
Oh yeah.
which I think is worth mentioning, because that's also really not hard. No, it's not easy.
but no, you're right. He's done just what Moot said. He's done a very good job on the shoulders as well. I may actually ping him after this and ask if he's got any more photos to use for the for the on screen behind us right now.
Definitely.
Something you'll have to do, Chris, over the course of this episode is use your imagination. Because if I say something like on the screen behind us, that will be me pretending there's something behind us that I'll put in post. So just you'll have to use your imagination, and you can do the same. You can say on the screen behind us is a picture of the most muscular man in the world, and I will just post a picture of you.
Oh, you're very sweet.
What Tom is trying to say is that we don't have a budget here, so we just use our imagination.
We just
Well, it's the best way to go about it. But yeah, no, these Dark Templars definitely do come right off of their 3-dimensional space, and I can honestly imagine them in motion. I think that's the biggest takeaway here, is that not only are they modeled from the point of action, obviously that has nothing to do with the painter. The paint is literally done from a perspective of in motion. I really feel that there was some comic book philosophy in here where it was somehow painted from the highest point of action.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And for our second model of the week, we have a wonderful maggotkin that was shown to us by Chris. Would you like to tell the wonderful listeners about this wonderful big fella?
Yes, this was done by a wonderful user on both of our community servers, and that is The Grape. The Grape has been very active in my community in posting his dramatic amount of art. I would say that he specializes in vibrancy and in using the complementary color palette, sometimes contrasting, but often with enough blending to where the contrast feels natural. And of course, with the maggotkin we can see in front of us is that yellow skin, that very sickly skin moving into that yellow-green right hand, but with the brown acting as a filter between it. And of course, you have that same yellow-green, not necessarily a full green, but that sickly yellow-green that blends well with the yellow. It's not contrasting as much as a natural, immediate, or medium green would. And my knowledge of color theory sucks, so please help me.
Yeah, I with that.
I think something here that really drew my eye was the vibrant green pustules just on the right side of his body. But something curious as well, I'll notice, and I'm sorry, I'm going to put something on the screen in a minute as well after zooming in on this. You can actually see the zombie head attached around his waist. And looking at that head looks pretty much identical to the frost zombies, and I'll put these on the screen now, the frost zombies I made last year. I'll put them on the screen behind us now. I don't know if either of you two, Aaron and Moots, remember them.
No,
but
I do.
That skin tone is freakishly similar.
What I remember the most is murdering them in Kill Team. That was a blast.
Yes. you leave them alone. Listen, the Cultists in Kill Team isn't a great team, but it's a fun team.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, I really enjoy it, and as Chris here is saying, I love the variation in the coloring. It's what really drew me to this particular model is that it's almost like, Christmassy in a way.
I can see what you mean. Yeah,
I just saw it. I was like, maybe it's just because we're closing in on the December, but I feel the Christmas spirit when I'm looking at this.
It's beginning to feel a lot like Poxmas.
It's just lights strapped around him. But no.
Sorry, gentlemen, I've just knocked my mic over. Fucking hell.
We expect such things from you.
Is that good? Does that look okay? Oh, I'm looking at my sound waves. Sorry, boys, technical issues because I have no bloody brains. Is that okay? Yeah, we look like we're good.
No, I'm a big fan of this guy. The skin is fucking lovely. The boils look pestilent. The armor corroded. To get to the fucking 7 out of 10, which is the best possible rating for Nurgle.
Well, as a Nurgle appreciator, we should hope it has your seal of approval.
So the rust on the scythe as well, actually, is very lovely.
Oh yeah,
the orange gradients like that are not easy, and no one's mentioned that so far. So I thought I'd throw it out there, as that is really fucking nice.
Oh yeah,
big fan of this boy. Looks very nice.
Anyways, gentlemen, shall we move on to our main topic today? We wanted to spend some time today to talk about. not just Warhammer 40k, but fitness in general, and the sort of correlation that these two communities have, because there is a growing sort of niche within our lovely tabletop community between people who work out regularly and take care of themselves and introduce others to personal fitness and health, as well as the wonders of tabletop. And the great thing we have today is 3 of our 4 speakers today, the fourth one being me, are actually all people who are very in tune with their own fitness. We have 2 PTs in here today, and a literal dwarf.
He came out of the womb, 20-pound of muscle.
Dwarfs are an analogy for fitness, right? Being muscular and strong, you know?
Maybe.
Wait, Deadlifts for the Dark Gods isn't here.
I mean,
you know, you're right. This would be a very interesting topic to discuss with him.
Oh, yeah, no.
For sure.
it's funny you mentioned dwarfs so early on. One of my favorite clients has just hit 100 kg on bench for the first time, and he looks like a straight out of book fantasy dwarf. It's fucking hilarious.
Very solid. Yeah, no, I kid about the dwarf joke. Deadlifts for the Dark Gods has made that joke himself on Lore Crimes, so don't worry.
Okay.
It's all fair game.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's as you said, and we talked about this a bit previously. I think it's really fun to see that, especially among content creators. Like, fitness has become in the 40k community, fitness has become just more and more prevalent, and at least as far as I have noticed. Whenever talking about fitness on my own platforms, I have noticed that there is a lot of correlation, or people in the community are actually pretty active. I mean, it's not to say that, you know, you should always believe the stereotypes when it comes to geeks, nerds, and 40k players. So it's like it's fun to see, because fitness is very important. Many people unfortunately don't realize this, and it's just super fun to see a healthy and thriving community.
Well, you've got people in the community like Strength Hammer, Fit Hammer. You've got Umoots. We've got Aaron. We have Chris here. We have Deadlifts for the Dark Gods. We have Quips the Nerd, and many others who are prevalent, you know, members of the community who will post their modeling work, but will also post alongside that gym stuff. You know, their exercise routines, and, you know, putting in the hours, getting up nice and early, and cracking on with that stuff.
Well, just as a continuation of that, and also to kick it off, you can never control what someone will take away from a story, and that's sadly true. For every person who's inspired to take up martial arts and athletics from reading a Batman comic, there are twice as many who just want to pick up another Batman comic. But at the same time, your mental diet does matter. And when you are taking in these stories about warriors who train every single day, there is no way to avoid that beautiful subconscious feeding, that beautiful subconscious food that's being fed to you of go out, do something, go out, do something. You are judged based on your actions.
Well, there's that wonderful trend that I've seen coming up, and I know Aaron's seen it too, because he's definitely sent me a few on Instagram. Instagram stories and reels of people in the gym doing absolutely insane things with gym equipment that they're not meant to do. Basically saying things like, you know, training to defend Terra, and you just got some asshole running on a treadmill at fucking 15 miles an hour, holding a fucking 50 kilo weight just in front of him while running.
It's really funny you mentioned this so early, because that was going to be one of my main points about like inspiration and shit, and the influx of like 40k content based off the Henry Cavill series. So everyone's trying to get into film now, or the series now.
Oh yeah.
And so now people are doing this ridiculous bullshit like training to be a Marine from the World Eaters, and it's some dude with like a one lopsided barbell swinging it about over his head, or a white scar dude just holding this fucking massive sled carried in weights.
Well, Aaron, that ties in heavily to one of the things I was actually talking with Tom about before the start of the podcast, and that is just that my favorite chapter of Space Marines is the Raven Guard.
Yeah, but
And as a Raven Guard, you are an underdog. You are you have to embody all aspects of fitness, but as a Raven Guard, you have to be training. And when that deictic shift occurs, when that perspective shift occurs from you as the reader to being in the story, and you, like a child seeing a martial arts film, thinking you're the hero of the martial arts movie, think a little bit of yourself as a Raven Guard, you'd have no excuse not to make it through that routine. You have no excuse because your brothers need you, and they are dying in record numbers, more so than most chapters.
But there's a wonderful sort of... It's really interesting. I mean, it's just something that I've just sort of noticed, and I just want to bring up quickly, an interesting sort of subversion there, because you could talk about the inspiration between not just Space Marines, but the other facets of humanity within the Imperium, and how one could apply the theology there to your own health and your own fitness. And I don't know, I just find it kind of interesting that you'd pluck out the Raven Guard as opposed to any of the other chapters, because you do have things like, or legions, you have things like the World Eaters, who are literally, when you think of World Eaters, you think of a man with a bicep the size of a small bus poking out of his armor, and you've got Space Marines from the Imperial Fists like Maximian Voss, who had to have his armor fucking retrofitted because he wouldn't stop fucking working out and getting bigger. So I don't know, I just find it a really lovely little subversion there to pluck out the Raven Guard as a, hey guys, think about this. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, no, if you want a little bit of a relation, so two things on that. One, I'll shout out two members of my community, Gnome Hunter and Jackinator. Both are ex-military or currently serving the military, and of course their favorite regiments are the Imperial Guard. Their favorite factions are the Imperial Guard.
Of course.
But that's also a beautiful thing because they're the most human, they're the most physically active and engaged of any of the factions. But the second thing I want to say is when it comes to the Raven Guard, that also has to do with, I think, also just my own fascination with ninjas. I remember being a little kid and watching the Shadow Warriors documentary and learning that like ninjas weren't allowed to eat onions because it would cause them to sweat a certain smell that could be detected, things of that nature. But just to end my little rant and then let you guys go. No, I'm not leaving, but just to end my little rant, there is a beautiful understanding from my own background in fitness to where I use 1800 strongman methods. I do not believe in just hammering through a weight routine with no other aspects of fitness being involved. I literally stop in the middle of my weight routine every time I'm doing it to effectively do a yogic-inspired routine of stretching, of flexibility to the same degree that you would train as a contortionist. And I do that because I know very well the effect it will have on hypertrophy, but also the effect it has in preventing injury. And one of the things I was very inspired by with the Raven Guard was wraith slipping is a full-on martial art. It is space ninjutsu. It is literally, that's what it is. They, despite being Space Marines who are literally permanently enhanced athletes who have mega steroids pumping through their body, they take time to wrap their joints and fill their power armor with dust, which both acts as healthy joint support in the real world if you wrap your joints, but then also, in addition to that, you are also engaging in a very similar aspect to ninjutsu, and what it reminds me of heavily from the real world ninjas of the 1300s is how they would train themselves specifically, and you have to understand these were very lean body mass heavy but lightweight individuals who would literally walk on their hands, not a handstand mind you, but literally feet on hand would walk to silence their footsteps as they were approaching a target to slaughter them. Anyway, that's all.
No, you're absolutely right. It's and it's quite funny that as well because we take a lot of time as hobbyists and people who are into the lore to maybe not criticize, but certainly to poke fun at the masses and masses of unrealistic bullshittery that happens, within the Imperium and the narratives that are pushed forward by the Black Library about, things that happen within the universe. But there's so many really curious things that you can dissect, especially when it comes to Space Marines, that were very clearly inspired by and using real life, application, real life like logic, especially when it comes to physiology. I mean, we talk about all the different Space Marine organs and all that jazz. And like you mentioned, the mega steroids. But ultimately, when you sit down and you start plucking it apart and talking about its comparisons to real world things, you can actually find a frightening degree of, I'm going to say it, a frightening degree of realism and groundedness within the not just the physiology of Space Marines, but the whole setting in general. I mean, actually, now I say that, I feel like a bit. Maybe that last part might be a bit far fetched, but certainly with Space Marines, you know, it's not impossible to think that if we did decide to go the way of a dystopian spacefaring society, it wouldn't be a crazy concept to think that something like a Space Marine and the things that comprise Space Marines would be it wouldn't be entirely out of reach, you know?
Well, in terms of physical training, I absolutely agree. But I would, and you know, that ties into something beautiful about the 40K universe, which is the corny elements. And I'll pull out a brief, pretentious Albert Einstein quote. If you know something well enough, you should be able to explain it on the back of a napkin, meaning you should be able to simplify it as short as possible. And one of the beautiful things about the corny elements of 40K, the space Vikings that are the space wolves, the Imperial fists who are really good at fisting, the fact that those are very much similar to something that occupies your time and that allows you to have an epiphany of something you were thinking of earlier but having a mental block about. It's very similar to when you go take a shower and then suddenly you realize the solution to a problem you were working on that day. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I want to... I kind of...
Are you okay?
Sorry, gentlemen.
Dad noises 2.0, here we go.
Sorry, guys. I'm just going to cut out the last 20 seconds.
Leave it in.
Is this because of the salmon?
Throw in the old man again.
No, something I want to throw out there off the back of that, and bringing it back to your psychology training. Despite how humble you are about it, and some interesting sort of comparisons we can draw there to the very, you know, real world bullshit that we all deal with, and the potentially real life comparisons between that and Space Marines is talking about sort of Space Marine indoctrination, Space Marine ideology, because, you know, ultimately we can go, okay, Space Marines can be grounded and realistic from a physiological standpoint, but an interesting real life thing that I want to draw into this is if you look at you know, the Navy SEALs.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the Navy SEALs, Special Forces, etc.
Yeah.
Something that I believe Jocko Willink said that I find really fascinating. I might be wrong. It might have been someone else, but I'm like 80% sure it was Jocko Willink who said it, is that almost every single Navy SEAL has a degree of religious belief that is not minor. That is something they are quite... that they have quite a sort of a heavy sort of personal foundation in, you know. And I find that very interesting to bring up because obviously there's very big comparisons there between Space Marines, the ultimate human warriors, and their sort of religious beliefs. You know, this notion that with that kind of existential backing, you are capable to move forward and excel and exceed expectations in practical sort of application of warfare. You know, and so we have there these two very interesting grounded things that we have examples of in real life of physiology and psychology being applied to real people to make them excel, but also to Space Marines, you know?
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring that up because I guess I mean, Space Marines aren't all religious. Yes, they're like monks, warrior monks, more or less, but
sure, yeah.
I mean, everyone, I think, needs something to believe in some way, shape, or form. And whatever it is you choose to believe in, it is what drives you and motivates you to do things. And it can be anything from a religion to a lifestyle to whatever else makes you go. And funnily enough, for some people, that is like going to the gym, like being really fit, being really healthy, and
well, that's it, yeah.
And some people take that either to the extreme or they live like do it modestly. You know, it's to certain degrees, but everyone needs something to make them go. And as you say, religion, gym, whatever motivates you.
Well, it's interesting to that because there is actually, despite what I just said about how special forces in the United States are typically comprised of people who have a degree of religious faith behind them. A case where that's a bit less true is actually the British special forces, the SAS and the SBS. Now, granted, I have no doubt in my mind at all that there certainly has to be at least some sort of religious backing behind maybe some individuals within those
organizations.
Thank you. Yeah, within those sort of those organizations. But what I do know to be true is that listening to examples of Navy SEALs interact and work alongside the SAS is that these guys are very, very protective of certain facets of British culture. Whereas the typical Englishman that is a civilian would have absolutely no trouble at all chatting shit about the Queen, who is God bless the Queen and her soul wherever it is now. No Englishman has ever really in the last 100 years had a problem making light of that. But in the SAS, that's not a joke to them. That patriotism and that faith in the protection of and doing the will of unto others of that figurehead is a very, very big thing. And again, you've got more comparisons you can draw there between the Space Marines and the execution of the Emperor's will in whatever way their betters see fit.
It comes down to like a different mindset sort of thing.
Going briefly back to the point on faith and its effect on soldiers. So there are two examples I'd probably want to bring up. One is on diversity of faith and respecting what works for your soldiers and giving them that freedom of diversity, which actually does tie in heavily to 40K and obviously the various foundings and the way they all split off. But the first example I want to go to is a very brief one, and that is just any documentation, and I won't get too controversial with this example, any documentation you can find of anywhere between the First and Fourth Crusades in the real world, on both sides, you can find examples of soldiers in those wars fighting through extreme pain and nearly lethal, practically lethal, if not fully lethal, injuries. And you can find these written examples. And yes, you could argue they're exaggerations, but the power of someone propelled by faith and that religious instinct to overcome serious injury and pain. Yeah. And then the modern example I want to give is actually... and this is not related to any modern event in any way, but the Russian military and its ability to allow for Orthodox Christian soldiers, yes, but also has a sub-branch of those who want to convert to traditional Scandinavian paganism. The fact that there are some real-life space wolves out there. And, and those religious views are respected so long as they help the soldiers survive, so long as that mentality of complete the mission, kill the enemy, get home. If you want, I could tie that back into some personal beliefs. Now, I personally have a thing on my server and in my community where I will never try to push my religion on anyone, politics on anyone, or what's the third thing? Right, no porn, but that's not really possible on a podcast. So,
that's very relevant, man. Wait till you see our next episode.
Oh, yeah.
God, no. Every Primarch search history when.
Oh, they Primarchs are. We wish it was Primarchs. They weren't Primarchs.
Oh, no.
Aaron had fun. Just to briefly go off topic, I'll let you take it back in just a sec. Aaron had a lot of fun talking about... and by the way, audience, this episode that we're talking about now is already live. I'll put the thing on the screen now. You can go watch it if you want. It's called Xenos After Dark. We had a lot of fun with the gaming storyteller, a.k.a. Alex, putting together the definitive tier list of the... bedtime prowess of
all
Xenos.
Professionals. Don't worry.
It's all safe. It's all safe for work. You could stream it. You could stream it to your coworkers. It's all good.
It's all backed by science.
You wouldn't believe that the same people who are talking this podcast right now also talked about that.
The Tyrannidusi was a controversial.
Get it right.
Sorry, Chris. Please continue.
No.
Please don't let us start this again. We'll be here all
the
day.
last thing I'll go over is this. I'll do this in a tactful way that actually respects the restrictions I put on myself when talking about this. I won't tell you what religion I am, but I will tell you the values that I try to live up to every day. You called me one of the most muscular people you've ever met. This is part of those values. The religion that I belong to, the way to communicate that is actually a comparison with Buddhism. So there's a comparison with Buddhist monks, and when Buddhist monks are asked sometimes, and you might be familiar with this if you grew up around Buddhists or have Buddhist friends, but when they are asked, why do you meditate, they will respond with, why do you breathe? And part of the religion I belong to, when someone is asking you, why do you engage in physical fitness, this was actually a thing done in the time period when this religion was very popular in the part of the world where it was very popular, very vague. But people would literally stage interventions for friends. And we know this from historical documents, the same way you would stage an intervention today for people who are in drug addiction or things of that nature. They would stage interventions for their friends with that same level of emotional intensity and feeling hurt from the person's behavior when they refused to engage in physical fitness, when they became lackluster, when they did not, literally, when they did not lift, when they did not do cardio. Brother, you are hurting me. Brother, you have fallen down. Brother, let me pick you up. This is what these people would do. And I will share with you the 7 values, that I try to uphold every single day. And these are very simple. And so this is not related directly to the religion. These are the values I have derived from it. 1, power. Always grow how much you can control. 2, scope. Only concern yourself with what you can control. So why do I not engage in politics and all that? Do I have any control? No. Humanity. Respect the potential of others. Masculinity. Derive confidence from your inherent value as a man. That's the workhorse in our brain. Improvement. Be a friend to yourself first. Equality. Make decisions based on logic rather than bias. And prosperity. Success is best, like a Space Marine chapter, when shared in effort and reward. That's all.
Are you possibly a fan or practicer? I got to throw out, since we're taking it there anyway, I might as well. Are you possibly a fan or practicer of Stoicism?
Stoicism is a literal part of my religion, yes.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't think this has anything to do with Stoicism or at least the Stoics per se. But there's a wonderful quote I want to mention here. And again, just to the audience, I'm not in shape. I'd love to be. In the same way that you listening, if you're not in shape, you would love to be.
He's A-shape.
Aaron. A wonderful quote by Socrates that I was going to say I've committed to memory, but I haven't. Otherwise, I would be in shape. But Socrates said, "No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical strength. It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable." Now, this is a really interesting sort of thing to draw upon what you just said, where not only can you find ancient examples of, not just ancient but modern, but ancient examples of the necessity of physical capability and that's application of one's mental health and, real world application, but also the want. So the difference between need and want, and how you are essentially missing out on something that can give you a very honest and true sense of pride, a non-arrogant, non-oppressive, but a true and humble sense of pride by being able to say, hey, listen, in X, Y, and Z situation, my physical strength can be of use to you. Of use to your fellow man, of use to your battle brothers, question mark?
Yes.
Potentially.
Tom, and this is, okay, so since the Stoicism thing has been blown, the example I was speaking of before when I was being vague was literally Seneca staging an intervention for his friends in ancient Greece because they refused to lift and because they refused to do cardio. But
good.
Generally speaking, in addition to that, and this is also, by the way, motivation for you to finally read my Celestial Eagles homebrew, because each one of those short stories in that homebrew starts with a quote from the Terran philosopher Seneca. So
I'm looking forward to this now. I think I might enjoy it.
He also had a lot of good words on anger management. So, the Black Templars wouldn't really...
We'll pass those on to Red. Thank you.
That's fair.
Well, but like all things considered, unfortunately, we can talk about mental health, fitness, all that we want, but for some people, unfortunately, that's not really a possibility. Everyone has different...
No, of course, absolutely.
Different the
circumstances,
predicaments, and things like that.
Of course. I fully respect that.
Yeah.
We have in our Discord a really wonderful individual called Xander, and we've actually shown some of Xander's models in our Models of the Week more than a handful of times. Now, Xander and I... So I just want to mention, just shout out to you, Xander, if you're watching. I'm sure he will love this episode, because he and I sat down and spoke about Stoicism for... It was a few months ago now. We sat down and spoke about Stoicism for like 6 hours, going into like 3 a.m.
Fucking hell.
And I almost feel like this episode is like steering into a direction where I need to just title it For Xander. Because Xander, I won't mention too much detail about Xander, because obviously I don't have the right to, but Xander is of a certain faith and I'm not of faith. And we had a very interesting sort of conversation about the impact of one's faith on one's execution of their own life, and it's very interesting how an individual's mindset and belief system isn't just going to be about what you think happens when it's all over,
No.
and how a lot of modern faiths, despite certain very vocal voices, a lot of modern faiths have much more to do with how you persecute your earthly existence than what comes next, and the sort of reliability of faith on living a good life. I mean, obviously, like almost like Moot said as well, and sort of going off on a tangent, nothing's concrete.
No.
You can have the greatest belief system and be a complete piece of shit, but conversely, you can be of no faith and have a wonderful existence. And the opposite is true. It's all true. Everyone's different. Everyone's got, like Moot said, different circumstances. But the correlations between having a solid belief system that in your mind is unassailable to having a well-lived and honest lifestyle is really, really interesting. And I feel compelled now to bring this back to 40k in some sense, because there is a lot of problems with the Imperial Creed. There are some really big issues with the Imperial Creed. It's called the Imperial Cult for a reason, And I think I do have to throw a disclaimer out there, guys, despite the nice things we're saying. Please do not subscribe to the Imperial Creed and the Imperial Cult is a good way to live your life. It is a terrible idea.
Lapsin Lorgar.
Please don't do that.
Just listening to all that, I wanted to mention on the note of like earthly existence and sort of limited parameters of what you do in this lifetime. I'm a big fan of the concept of sort of sculpting the one thing you have true control over, which is your own body, which you only get one of, sort of thing, as far as we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like, the main reason I like doing PT and stuff like that is through the mutual enjoyment people get through realizing their own ability and progression through sculpting their own body. Like I'm a big fan of sort of strength and hypertrophy style stuff from like bodybuilding and stuff like that. So I like getting the aesthetics, I like getting the strength, I like the sort of smashing target style vibe of it. And that sort of sung to me a lot because I like the sort of concept which links into that little bit of why be strong if you can't be kind, sort of thing.
Of course.
And you can link that to fucking like Berserk or fucking whatever you want to do. Same sort of fucking vibe.
Yeah.
No, that sung to me really nicely, actually. I really vibed with a lot of that spiritual sort of talk about inner self and sort of kindness for others. And I was a big fan of that.
I think that's a really interesting point, because it actually comes back to something, and this isn't just exclusive to men, but the sort of quote I have in my head, or the example, the word I'm going to use is a little bit. And that's, despite the very harmful stereotype of very toxic gym bros, which is a harmful stereotype, no matter what anyone wants. It's a very bad thing to apply to people, because if you've ever been in a gym if you go to a gym every day for a week and you somehow begin to socialize in there, you'll see that doesn't exist. That's not. I mean, it does exist, but it's such a terrible stereotype to persecute, because for men, working in the gym and socializing in the gym and hitting goals and furthering yourself and bettering yourself and really trying to push yourself, there is an invaluable, totally and overwhelmingly invaluable thing you can find, and that is that sense of brotherhood. And I've just realized, I didn't even think this whilst I was saying that, the connotations between that and Space Marines, Ken, brotherhood, specifically brotherhood. That very positive and healthy example of masculinity that people 100%. Can engage in,
So just on that note, that reminded me again, drawing back to my client who hit the 100 kg. We're working on that for fucking months. We're grinding the way up bench for ages. The moment he hit that last rep, he got up fucking like fist butt, like fucking pumped himself, dapped me, and just launched me into himself, slapped me on the back. I've never been hugged.
It felt great, didn't it? It felt great.
Yeah, it was so fucking hyped. It was the most like testosterone-filled happiness thing you'll ever see in your life or ever experience, is hitting that massive goal you've been chasing for months and months and months.
Absolutely,
and seeing that progression and effort finally be validated. It's fucking huge for your mental just health and everything like that. And he hit that a week before his wife had a kid, so he's fucking well off on it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I don't know if you know this content creator, Aaron, but you got those Kayakaros Grizzly vibes. The just the fist bump, still screaming.
Fucking love that guy. I saw a video of him spotting a guy on bench who was like not even half his size. And he was treating the weight like it was the world's fucking like PR attempt. He was just screaming, being so motivational. And it was the exact same sort of thing I mentioned, where you just pulled him into him and slapped him on the back afterwards. But I fucking love Kayakaros Grizzly. Yes, he's fucking awesome.
As a Nurgle reference, all hail the Bloat Lord. But I actually had a point that ties in both to the spirit of, I would say, the Imperial Guard, and I actually wanted to share someone who is a very big fitness inspiration to me, and that is because of how much he has been through and still persists, and that is actually my dad. My dad, I'm 27, my dad is 70. He survived 3 different types of cancer: non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, he survived pancreatic cancer, and he survived colon cancer.
Fucking Christ.
He's also missing
fighter.
one of his lower vertebrae.
Oh,
and so, in addition to all of that, every single day, he wakes up and he does his band exercises. Every single day, he walks at least 4 miles. Every single day, well, every other day, he also uses dumbbells, to the point where last Father's Day, I got him a pair of 10-pound dumbbells because that's what he can use right now, and he's moved up from his 8-pound dumbbells. Yeah. It is a very slow progression, but I am overwhelmingly proud of my father, just like I'd be overwhelmingly proud of any human who overcomes that kind of suffering and is able to move forward in life. Anyone out there right now, you're wheelchair bound, I can introduce you to wheelchair athletes who are amazing and incredible, both in their personality and in their fitness. Anyone who is an amputee, the important thing you should know, anyone who has suffered through these diseases, I admire your strength if you are continuing. 2, you will find a supportive community out there. You will.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that's actually super relevant to myself recently. My mum has just finished fighting breast cancer. She's going to become chemo and radio now, so she's on medication. And for the first time since then, like this whole 6-month, 8-month period of her having to deal with hell and treatments, she's in the gym getting a fucking PT session.
Amen.
Sick.
And I've never been more
Wonderful.
fucking proud.
Amen, Aaron. Amen.
Wonderful.
You can't see it, but I'm hugging
That's
you.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's great.
Appreciated. But no, it was just that I know an idea of what you see, or like what you sort of experience of your like dad fighting that sort of thing, just through this sort of mutual proudness of they're fucking doing it, they're being stronger than I ever fucking could. And it's insane. It's such a wholesome thing to be around because it's so empowering. I find it super motivational.
And now, tying it back to 40K, imagine if we were all Astartes, enhanced space marines, etc., watching a single Krieger guardsman with a shovel beat down a chaos space marine single-handedly using advanced tactics from behind and superior strategy. They're just sitting there clapping. It's like, yeah, actually, this is amazing. This is great.
Oh, amazing.
Well, that's just it. I mean, it does lend itself a lot into, because a lot of people, despite using the word rampantly, a lot of people don't understand the true definition, the true definition of the word glory and glorious. And overcoming those things, whether the thing you're overcoming is purely mental or purely physical or both, you can take a sense of glory in that. You know, and that's the kind of thing that you see in Warhammer 40k narratives of Space Marines achieving glory, because it is going back to real life, it is such a glorious thing to push past your boundaries, to push past the mental blocks that you've put for yourself. I mean, again, like Moot said, you know, there's going to be people out there who can't do X, Y, and Z, or X or Z, or Y and X, or whatever, for whatever reason. And if you're one of those people, that's totally justified, man. I get it. There are some things that are just impossible. But ultimately, everyone will have mental barriers. And the ability to push past those mental barriers, whether it takes you days, years, decades, is something that, as individuals, we and you should ultimately take an immense sense of glory in, because it is so glorious.
Oh, yeah.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible if you put yourself bare to it and just say, fuck it, let's go.
You might hit 6 foot one day, Moots.
No, unfortunately, that's the one thing I raise.
Almost
anything is possible. You know what? I can stand on some stilts. There we go. That's
get the Jack Hanmer bone extension surgery, man.
We'll just put 2 Moots in a trench coat.
Moots, real life Jack Hanmer. He's getting the bone.
When I get to Sweden, Moots, you can sit on my shoulders and experience height for the first time, man. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. And then while I do that, I'm gonna fucking teabag your fucking face. Amazing. Thank you for your help.
Well, one thing that taking the piss out of Moots' height hits on actually very well is oftentimes the very shallow motivations people have. And we were hitting on that also, of course, with the faith-based motivation, with the culture-based motivation, with the family-based motivation. This beautiful understanding of what it is to affect your, and help, as Tom was talking about, practically help your fellow man with your physical fitness, with your able-bodiedness. But take away, and I would heavily encourage, much in the same way that the philosopher Seneca would say, we are taking away anger, we are rejecting anger, and we are embracing duty and logical order for the reason we are going to war, and the reason we would serve the military of our local nation, the reason we would do anything like that. Just in the same way that Seneca says that, we also take away, and this is going to be hard for a lot of guys out there, we should take away the sexual motivation for training. We should take away the shallow motivations for training, take away the aesthetic motivations for training. What exactly about this tells you you're in the right area, you're doing the right thing? And it's going to be a combination of that serotonin. It's going to be a combination of the increase in mental health that makes you a stronger, healthier person. And I would just like to deeply apologize to the wonderful audience of Astartes Anonymous for not talking enough about Space Marines. I really did want to do that.
Don't worry about it. It's all good. We spent enough time talking about Space Marines. It's all right, man.
I was about to say, just in relation to 40k and fitness and shit. I think 40k serves as a great sort of motivation. Like, I know you said you don't like aesthetics and training, but I think aiming for that sort of impossible goal of like Space Marine physique. Oh yes, like naturally anything like that. Or if you want to talk about something like that, or other popular ones like sort of Berserk or JoJo's or Baki, or any of these ridiculously jacked people in like popular social media nowadays. I think it serves as an excellent addition to that because it just adds more to the hobby. When you think about it, you get into the hobby, it's like, haha, silly plastic man, and you go, no, but I want to look like that. I want to look like that guy.
In the end, it should be about doing something for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That's at least how I see it. Whatever your goals are, whatever your handicaps are, or whatever, it's just do it for yourself. Don't do it for someone else. Do it for yourself.
Yeah. I agree with that, absolutely. I just think it serves as a good motivator. It doesn't serve as the purpose, but as an idea I want to get to my goal. And then that serves there as like, I'm going to go hit gym. You wake up, not feeling it, look at a picture of Space Marine, fuck, get out of bed, you go there, sort of thing. Or like when Moots wakes up and realizes his height begins with a 4, he's like, fuck, I got to go gym. Same thing.
But it's really interesting because, there's two kinds of pride. There's the kind of pride that's good, and there's the kind of pride that's bad. If the kind of pride that's bad motivates you to do good, there is still something you can take away from that. But ultimately, you can turn bad pride into good pride, irrespective of how it causes these processes in your mind to do something, as long as you treat your fellow man with respect.
Yeah.
If you're going to the gym and being healthy and it's improving your mental health, and you've grown a sense of arrogance, that does not fucking matter, so long as that arrogance does not cause you to treat your fellow man with disrespect. You treat your fellow man well, and healthy positivity, good motivation, good atmosphere, good everything, or good anything, it doesn't matter where that power you've attained, that pride you've attained comes from, as long as you do something good with it.
So Tom, another way to contextualize what you're saying, arrogance humbled by realism equals healthy confidence.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so
I wonder if I should
fucking
just
on point.
title the video that.
I love
that's
that.
a really
Holy shit.
great.
Yeah, that was an
simple
original,
way of putting
too.
it. That's really wonderful.
That was
Yeah, I was going to slap your name at the end of that. That's great.
But no, I'll end on a Seneca
Put it in the
quote, and then
thumbnail.
I'll let you the boys take it from here. So my final word will be on the nature of self-improvement for the self. I'll end on a Seneca quote: "The greatest friends you will ever have are people who learn to be friends to themselves first. And the greatest way you can be a friend is to be a friend to yourself."
Absolutely. Holy shit. Absolutely. And with that, gentlemen, it is time we draw this episode to a close. Before we do our final bits, I just want to say, if you have enjoyed this episode, you've enjoyed listening to us, you've enjoyed listening to Chris, go check out Chris's channel, GrimDark HalfOff. I'll put it in the description down below. If you enjoy listening to us rant about sex with Xenos, positive outlook on life, Space Marines, and all the other brands of idiocy that we talk about and discuss, we have a Patreon link down below as well. We would love it if you join that or just had a look. It's all good. Thank you so much for watching. We don't have Red here to shout at us and threaten to kill us
very much
for this particular outro, but I'm sure we'll make something work.
I mean, I think we can all both agree that we would like to kill Aaron at some point for constantly finding new ways to mess up at the beginning of the recording.
Nothing wrong up today.
I, for one, have enjoyed making brutal and sinister love to your eardrums.
So, with that said, Aaron, bring your ass over here. I'm gonna fucking get you. I'm Dominus Nox. Bonsoir, mes chéris. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you got this far, why don't you hit that like, smash the subscribe button, and rock that bell before you check out our other social medias, like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And if you're feeling extra saucy tonight, why don't you hop on over to our Patreon where you can help steer our content. And finally, join our Discord where you can talk to me and the rest of the gang. Alright, take care now and see you next time. Au revoir.